Hello, I'm Phillip Taylor from Richmond Green Chambers. I'm dealing with this book, John Stuart Mill, Victorian Firebrand, written by Richard Reeves. It's an interesting book, and it's a book that I do advise anybody who is reading law and jurisprudence as a subject to have a good look at. I gave in my written review the title, The Most Open-Minded Man in England. That was a quote from Gladstone, because of course Mill was a liberal. But don't get confused with his open-mindedness when you consider what leading liberal William Gladstone was talking about at the end of the 19th century when he gave the great John Stuart Mill this label. Obviously many students have tremendous affection for Mill, even though they may not care for the word liberal in its current usage. I think it's important to understand the value of this book for jurisprudence undergraduates, which is where my comments are mainly aimed. What Reeves has done here is he's produced the first proper and worthwhile study of Mill for 50 years, and it will be of great benefit to scholars. The content of the book is very specific, and I would suggest you look at chapters 11 on liberty and 12 on To Hell I Will Go, because that's where Reeves offers some of the most useful 21st century quotable insights into our Victorian Firebrand. Frankly, I've never really thought of Mill as a firebrand in the sense that the world he left us was unquestionably better off for the efforts that he expressed during his time. And obviously we have to consider with this book his most important concept, which is utilitarianism. And obviously Reeves' work gives Mill his proper place in jurisprudence with this subject. He describes utilitarianism as a word with a divided personality, meaning one thing in common use and the opposite in formal philosophy. And what I found particularly inspiring with this book is the political and historic context in which Mill has been placed. And I always think it's important with a case or with any philosopher to think of the time that he or she or the case has actually been decided or dealt with. All the people have obviously lived through that particular society and the attitudes prevailing at that time. What we've got here is Richard Reeves succeeding with his task in nearly 487 odd pages, a great deal of notes and a good index at the back. He succeeded in this task, as I say, because what he's done is to give a splendid series of illustrations as well, which put the book at the forefront of any legal and political biography. There's one particular thing which I think is relevant, and many people have probably heard this story before, but I'll end on this particular anecdote. I think it's true, though, of course, in the way it's told. It's about a baby. What happened is in 1823, in St James's Park in the Walkway, Mill discovered the newly killed baby lying on the walkway, and he came to the conclusion it led to the sort of behaviour, having seen the problems and talked about the problems, it was an identification of the sort of behaviour which made Mill the highest ranking philosopher of his century. Obviously he was so affected by the death of this particular newborn baby that it affected very much the way in which he thought and he acted. Obviously Mill dealt with a very large range of issues which are still current today. For instance, in the 19th century they had problems with the need to reform gambling, alcohol, prostitution, and so forth. And of course those issues haven't gone away, and I know from my teaching abroad in Canada, the United States, that they have the same issues. You may have different tags, but they do have the same issues that we all have to deal with. Let me just end by saying that I think this is a great read. He's a special man to me. It's a great book about a great man. I am a fan, I confess it, but I think you will be too when you read the book. Do read it, and as I say, if you're looking for a really high classification, it's worth possibly quoting bits from this book. Anyway, there it is, John Stuart Mill. All the best to you. Thank you very much. Bye bye.